We are slaying monsters.
Don't let the ghosts and the ghouls disturb you, darling.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's nice. It's very hazy.
So this is
Very effervescent.
This is a beer called Ocean Monsters from the collaboration between the Abomination Brewing Company and the Mast Brewing Company. Abomination is out of North Haven, Connecticut, and Mast Landing, we just looked up, is out of Maine.
Hell yeah, Maine.
Yeah.
And the picture on it is freaking sweet, man. It is a skeleton. Oh, man. Two skeletons on a rowboat together with a monster coming up out of the water.
What kind of monster?
It looks like an owl without a beak.
Oh.
I mean, I don't know what kind of monster, but it's got graveyards grown out of it. Oh.
Water owl.
It's a water owl, half water owl, half graveyard.
Ooh.
It's really freaky.
Oh, that's cool. Mm-hmm. It looks very Lovecraftian.
Yes.
Especially with there's a lighthouse in the background, and yeah, the skeletons in the rowboat on its back. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
It looks like a combination of like some Lovecraftian nightmare and Swamp Thing.
Hell yeah. What's that story that we saw that little indie film based off of that was actually pretty good, that low budget film? It starts with a D.
Are you talking about Dagon?
Yes.
Yeah, Dagon. That was so it's funny because Dagon is a short story and is also the creature, but the movie I believe was actually based off of Shadow over Innsmouth.
Oh.
Yeah.
But Dagon was like in that movie.
Well, Dagon I think is a deep one.
Okay.
So it all kind of
sense.
connects together.
That was a cool movie.
Lovecraftian adaptations have a tendency to like use the names of other things, but then take the plot of a different Lovecraft story. So like they'll have one plot, you'll call it like At the Mountain of Badness, but it'll actually be Call of Cthulhu or Rats in the Walls or something like that. I don't know why. It's just what they tend to do.
Why not?
So shall we sample?
Yes. Cheers.
Yeah, so this is a hazy IPA. I'm looking. I don't know if we actually... It's a 6.5%. Hopped
great.
with Citra, Strata, Simcoe, and Pacific Jade. Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
That's great. I like it. This is very nice.
Yeah.
We didn't put it in the fridge long enough, so it's a little warm, but that's our fault. But it's really good. It's got a nice hazy quality to it.
Yeah. This was a contribution from some good friends who went traveling and brought it back because they were like, this is the perfect beer for Matt and EJ. Because not only is it a craft beer, it also has some real creepy art on it.
Hell yeah.
They know us very well.
Yes. We have good friends,
It's true.
can we say.
So, EJ,
Yeah.
it's our first happy hour.
Oh, yeah. So everybody, this is our happy hour episode. This is Matt here on the
So-
other side of the desk.
Yo.
This is EJ speaking, obviously. We're going to try this thing out.
The concept here is to do news stories, cover some news stories, maybe do some appropriate stories for the month or the season or something like that. Mm-hmm. And if we have the opportunity, read some listener emails, talk about some feedback and things of that nature.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you want to be featured on our upcoming happy hour episodes, we're probably going to do this once a month. Email us, slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com. Feel free to send us news stories that you come across. We're always looking for cryptids and paranormal things and UFOs and weird things in the sky, strange occurrences, all kinds of stuff like that.
Send us your shit.
Send us your shit. So this first news story, this is about the Anatolian leopard that was caught on camera in Turkey, right?
Yes.
So recently, trail cams in the Turkish countryside captured video of what's called an Anatolian leopard. That's a species that was once considered nearly extinct in that region. The video shows the leopard moving across the grassland. It's chill, it's calm, and you see it both in the day and then there's night footage as well. And this has been making the rounds for, I don't know, a couple of weeks so far.
A little bit, yeah.
So I took the opportunity to dig more into the Anatolian leopard because this is something that I know nothing about. But I feel like these stories are some of the cornerstones of cryptozoology. You always hear about like Bigfoot and the chupacabra and the Loch Ness monster and that as the cryptozoology heavy hitters, right? Mm-hmm. But there's a whole branch of cryptozoology that's like the coelacanth, the ancient fish that they found, or like the kraken, giant squid. Mm-hmm. These sorts of animals. The thylacine is always one that they talk about, the Tasmanian tiger that apparently went extinct, but people sometimes still see it in the wild. So this is a very cool branch of cryptozoology that gets lost in the mess of the monsters and the cryptids and all of the more spooky, more supernatural type of stuff.
Right.
The Anatolian leopard, also called the Persian leopard, was a leopard subspecies native to the Caucasus Mountain region of the Middle East, particularly Turkey, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Armenia, Iraq, Iran, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, and possibly Pakistan. It's currently endangered, with some estimates putting the species at less than 1,000 remaining in the wild.
Mm-hmm. That's sad.
So, in my research, according to a surprisingly informative article in the magazine Amura, I believe that's how you pronounce it, Amura, A-M-U-R-A, it is a lifestyle and yachting magazine.
No shit.
Yeah. Persian leopards are squat, broad cats with long tails. They're primarily tree dwellers, where their tails help them maintain balance. The leopards feed on sheep, goats, and wild boar. While using trees as vantage points, they will scan the area for their prey. And once they sight on their prey, they stalk it, moving closer, nice and slow, sticking to the cover of the rocks and the overgrowth until they're close enough to pounce. Obviously, this was a problem for the early residents of the area, right? Mm-hmm. Shepherds struggled with these cats as far back as the Roman Empire.
Ooh.
Archaeologists have even found a network of stone traps estimated to be 5,000 years old in Israel.
Oh, like for these leopards, possibly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the early Bedouins built these traps. They were caves, essentially, that they constructed out of large stones, and they put them kind of sort of near where their livestock was, so the predators would be attracted to the livestock and sneak up, and then what they would do is they would bait these stone traps with like pieces of meat. Mm-hmm. The traps would have slabs, big stone slabs for doors, and the slab would connect to a rope that ran along the ceiling of the trap and then was tied to a peg in the wall, a wooden peg, and on that wooden peg they put a hunk of meat.
Ah, okay.
And then the idea being that the leopard would come in, try to eat that piece of meat, spring the trap, and then the stone door would slam behind it. Then when they arrived, they could presumably spear the leopard to death. Mm-hmm. So Naomi Porat and Uzi Avner were working with the Dead Sea and Avara Science Center, and they found over 50 of these traps in what's called the Yuvda Valley of the Negev Desert in southern Israel. And they look like just little mounds of stone. And then when you dig under them, you start to see that there's this really complex network of pulleys that would enable these leopards to be trapped in these traps. And if you think about it, 50 of these around, even if you're not trapping leopards all the time, that's a decent amount of cats that you're getting on a routine basis, right?
Yeah, clearly they seem to have a serious problem because there was...
Yeah.
You're just finding so many.
Well,
yeah,
you're talking about early herding. You're talking about early herding. They had them in place. don't really have fences and things like that. You know, you just kind of keep your animals in one area.
Yeah.
And that became super easy pickings for predators like these Persian leopards.
Yeah. It must have been a stressful ass job
I think it probably was.
to be a shepherd. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just...
Yeah.
I hear about... This could totally be not true, but like I thought I read once because I was looking up the history of like knitting and how it was actually like English shepherds would like knit while they would watch their sheep and everything. And I guess, you know, in England there'd be, I guess, stray dogs and badgers
Wolves.
and would they have wolves?
I think England has
I
wolves.
don't know about that.
They may not.
I
See,
don't.
I'm over here like, oh yeah, England has black dogs, but that's true. Yeah.
I don't know about
No,
wolves.
black dogs are cryptid. I don't know. Does England have wolves? All right, we're
Oh
gonna look it
God,
up.
I don't think they do.
England. Wolves.
I'm on team they don't have wolves.
Wolves were the last of Britain's top predators to be hunted to extinction. It's
Yeah.
believed they disappeared in the 18th century, following centuries of persecution.
That's really sad.
Yeah. Yeah, wolves were once present in Great Britain.
Well, Ireland had bears. I think probably England had bears too. I'm on this tangent now, but all I'm saying is I feel like the shepherds of yore in England had badgers to worry about. And I'm not saying it wasn't a badass job, because it was. But I'm telling you, man, if I was a shepherd in that area of the Middle East, I had freaking leopards to worry about. And I'm not knitting. I am sharpening my knife, because that is scary stuff. Or maybe I'm just knitting with really sharp needles.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't you use the needles? Although, you got to be real close to that leopard to stab it with a knitting needle.
Yeah, you got to be like really good.
Real close.
Really too close.
If I have learned anything from Red Dead Redemption 2,
Yeah.
it's that by the time the cat is that close, you're already dead.
Yeah,
And you better reload your game.
You have no chance. It's so true. It's so true. You can shoot that thing for 4 or 5 times and you're still dead.
Yeah.
Which is very true.
Bedouins, they were badasses, man.
They-
Just sitting out there waiting for the leopard and just, I guess, watching the leopard walk into the stone trap.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah. Seriously, badass people. Yep.
Now, the thing is, despite 50 traps in the Uvalde Valley, that did not prompt the decline of these leopards. What prompted the decline of the leopards happened in the 19th century. See, at the time, Russia was pushing the borders of its empire.
As it does.
I mean, you know, what has changed in the
Nothing
intervening
has
2 centuries? Russian history is big and it's bloody and it's convoluted, and I will do my best to keep this as simple as possible while still going off on some interesting little tangents that I found. So, to set the scene, in 1800, Catherine the Great's son, Paul I, annexed Georgia shortly before his assassination. Paul was kind of an odd one in Russia's history. He kept trying to reform the army, instituting things like uncomfortable uniforms and punitive punishments for transgression. He wasn't the most popular leader in Russia.
Well, how are these uniforms uncomfortable? Like, what would they put in there? Like some sand, like sand in the crotch, and like maybe some stones
Itching powder?
under the like maybe some fleas. They'd put some fleas in the wool.
I don't actually know how the uniforms were uncomfortable.
Maybe he made them 2 sizes too short, too small.
I don't know. I don't
not.
think it
It's
was
fine.
that.
We don't have to. We don't have to. I'm just gonna imagine that he was. He made them really small, and it was impossible to move around in them.
Yeah. Like children's size uniforms.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Now, Paul I also had a vengeful streak. This is probably best shown when he ordered the bones of Grigory Potemkin disinterred, like dug up, and scattered. Now, he did that likely for 2 reasons. One, because Potemkin was a famed military commander, and Paul was jealous of him. And, of course, he was unpopular with the military because he was, like, instituting punitive punishments. And the other reason is because Potemkin had been one of Catherine's lovers. So, essentially, his mom had this lover, and he was so I guess, jealous of that or pissed off about it or something, that he had the bones disinterred and then scattered around the countryside.
Those are some serious daddy issues.
Yeah,
Like
for real.
High-powered daddy issues.
After his assassination, his successor, Alexander I, appointed Pavel Tsitsinov.
Do you need help with this name?
Tsitsinov.
Okay, I can't see what you're looking at, but that sounds great.
I think that's what it is. I'm gonna say Tsitsinov. That's what it's gonna be.
Okay.
He was the general of Eastern Georgia. Using a little good old-fashioned military pressure, Tsitsinov was able to unite all of Georgia under the Russian rule before his assassination after receiving the keys to the city of Baku.
Damn.
It was, there were a lot of assassinations happening in Russia at that time.
Yeah, don't be a Russian monarch if you can help it. Like, you're probably better off being just a peasant.
I don't know about that.
No, probably not, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's great. But there was like a coin flip chance that you were going to be assassinated if you were a Russian monarch in the 1800s. So after his assassination, that spawned a war between Russia and Persia, which was then Turkey, right? Then that was followed up with the Russo-Persian War, which prompted the spin-offs, the Crimean War and the Russo-Turkish War. The ultimate result of all of this here is that Russia controlled a bunch of land in the Caucasus region, right? This is now mid to late 1800s. A common trope of the success of civilization is that you turn what used to be necessary survival things into entertainment. We see this even today. We're currently obsessed with the show Alone, where they take someone, drop them off in the middle of nowhere, and they have to survive as long as possible. That used to just be life. And now we watch it on the History Channel and we say, oh, this is so cool.
Right.
So this is not a new trend in human history. Russia was doing this back then. See, Russian nobility started going on hunting excursions in these newly acquired lands. They were trophy hunting. As reported in The Zoo Scientist, a conservation website, Russians were encouraged to hunt the Persian leopards, which were considered pests. So this led to a rapid decline in the big cat's population during the late 1800s and early 1900s.
Oh, wow. So this was pretty recent that this was going down.
It really was, yeah. Yeah, up until that point, I guess they were still considered pests if you had farmland and stuff there. But during that time where Russia started to hunt on that land, that was when they actually started to decrease the population by just sending people out there. The same way that you see poachers go to Africa now and take down elephants. Now, coinciding with this extermination effort, civilization, of course, continued to build in that region. And that basically obliterated the leopard's natural habitat, and the surviving leopards kept getting pushed further and further and further into isolation, away from the citizens, away from civilization, over and over again.
Yeah.
The Zoo Scientist reports that Persian leopards have lost almost 85% of their range in the last 150 years.
Damn.
Yeah. You didn't realize how sad this episode was going to be.
This is a sad episode, man.
Even as conservation efforts tried to help the dwindling leopard population, poaching continued to weed them out. The sad side effect of conservation is that often it actually increases the value of trophies from the poached animals, right? Persian leopards are no different.
Yeah.
So leopard pelts remained very popular even as the act of poaching the leopards became illegal and started to be persecuted.
You mean prosecuted?
Sure. What else?
Okay, so you said persecuted.
Prosecuted.
Prosecuted
I
is
do
when
that all the time. I screw that up all the time.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
I'm going to catch you.
Yeah, call me out on it.
I'm going to call you out on that. I got you.
And by the mid-1970s, the Persian leopard was considered mostly extinct in the region. Conservation efforts have helped slow this population decline since the 1970s. But it's a challenge because the leopard's territory spans so many borders, right?
Yeah.
Recently, reintroduction programs and habitat restoration efforts have helped to stabilize the dwindling population. Meanwhile, the European Endangered Species Program with an E, is helping to breed the leopards in captivity and creating what's called a backup population.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're stabilized in captivity right now.
That's
we at least are continuing the lineage. It's not like the dodo or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And that's all why it's so cool to see one of these leopards alive and just stalking through the Turkish countryside. Mm-hmm. While common reporting on this news item sensationalized these numbers quite a bit, there's still less than 1,000 surviving leopards in a habitat that spans 200,000 miles. And it's super exciting because this is the side of cryptozoology that tends to get lost amongst those legendary figures like Nessie and Bigfoot. But the Persian leopard is as cryptid as they come, a common animal driven into the shadows by civilization and occasionally popping its head out to remind us that nature isn't so easily beaten.
Hell yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's cool to see,
That's
right?
cool, yeah. It's nice to see that things can bounce back. It gives me hope. Because it's a tough time right now. I mean, we're all living in a really dark timeline, so it's kind of it's a nice thing to see this stuff happening once in a while.
It absolutely is. And there's so much civilization encroachment on nature right now. And we're trying to preserve these areas. We really are.
Yeah.
But there are still very few areas in the world that are allowed to remain the way they were. Just, as populations increase and things like that. Yeah. And we gobble up those resources.
Yeah, we develop land. We mine land. It's
yes.
One of my biggest life goals is first of all, have a ton of money. And then with that money, actually buy up land and preserve it.
Yeah.
That is like my biggest wish in life, that I could just take my millions of dollars that I don't have right now, but hopefully will someday have by some miracle, and buy acres and acres and acres. And it's just because I'm so sick of I am so freaking sick of driving by and seeing another development pop up.
Yeah.
Another mine go in. Just I don't know, man. It's it makes me sick, and I don't mean to get all pissy, but it's a big deal.
And particularly these mines here, I feel like it's almost, the developments almost aren't as bad because at least you're providing housing for a population who might plant trees, who might have gardens, who might, contribute to nature and bring in birds and animals and stuff like that. We have a meadow in our backyard. We see all kinds of bird species. We have a family of deer that come by. We have foxes.
Yeah, then it comes down to
raccoons.
educating people about that.
So you can do that. That's a solution while still having population on the land. But when you have things like mineral mines and that sort of thing, they come in, they obliterate the land for just a couple of years until you've sapped all of the resources there. Then you walk away and you leave it.
Yeah, and you're screwed for a really long time.
For a long time. It takes a long time for nature to bounce back after something like that.
Buh. Sad.
Okay, we can move on.
I don't mean to make it all sad and everything. It's great. Yay, leopards.
Well, it's good that we started with that news item.
Okay.
Now we can get to we'll get to some different stuff here. This is a more fun one.
All right.
Is it possible that Sasquatch sightings have been misidentified bears all along?
Is it possible? I think yes. And maybe also maybe?
Yes, and also maybe.
I really know how to stand my ground about this stuff.
I know how to stand my ground, I think. Well, if you say yes, then you are in a similar camp as researcher Flo Foxen, who seems to think so. In his recently published paper, If It's There, Could It Be a Bear?
I love that title.
Well, this is a follow-up. Well, I guess not a follow-up, but this was published alongside a recent paper, also by Foxen. If it's real, could it be an eel? And I just want to say, I really appreciate how he's bringing Dr. Seuss titles to scientific reporting.
Hell yeah. I love it. I mean, it draws my eye. I did see this paper, and I thought it was really cool.
Are the majority of Bigfoot sightings just misidentified bears? Well, like most things in cryptozoology, the answer is it's complicated. So in his paper, Foxon compares the distribution of the American black bear in America and Canada and cross-references this with Sasquatch reports from those regions. He notes that there are several factors in play here. First, you need people in the region in order to make a sighting, obviously, right? Second, you need to compare the number of people to the amount of land they live on. Because less people on more land means you're less likely to get reports of any animal, regardless of what it is, much less a particular animal.
Yeah.
You know, if you have 5 people on an acre, you're going to get less reports of squirrels than you are if you have 100 people on an acre. Right?
Yeah.
Foxon compared the number of Sasquatch sightings, the bear population in that particular region, the human population of the region, and the size of the land area. Compared all of those together, and I'll let him sum up his conclusion for us. A significant positive association was found between Sasquatch sightings and black bears, such that after adjusting for human population and land area, 1 Sasquatch sighting is expected for every few hundred bears in a given state or province. So every few hundred bears, you get 1 Sasquatch sighting.
Cool.
Now, at first glance, you might say this is the nail in the proverbial Bigfoot coffin.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe.
You could say that. You could say that.
You seem reserved, DJ. Tell me why.
I don't know. I mean, we can never say one thing for sure is why this exists. I think that there's a lot of reasons behind it, but I do think that what this person is saying is it's a really good way to measure bear population. Possibly. I think it could be used as a tool. I think what they're saying is absolutely right. It could be used as a tool.
Absolutely.
It's super smart. Especially because, like, you know, black bears have a lot of different colorings. And so, you know, we don't think of a Sasquatch as being like having black fur. We think of them as being more of probably a reddish color or blondish color. And if you see a black bear that has a bit of a golden tinge to it, that is walking bipedally. Exactly, right? Yeah. Yep. I would absolutely understand why the average person, even somebody who's really seasoned in the woods would think, oh, that's a Sasquatch. I would get that. Well, this is a theory, and you hit on part of it. Joe Nickell talked about this in Skeptical Inquirer. Bigfoot coloration is remarkably similar to bear coloration. But whenever we try to compare one thing to another thing, it gets a little muddy. So first we have the old logical fallacy, correlation does not imply causation. Now, this means that just because 2 things happen together, they don't necessarily cause each other to occur, right? This is shown masterfully in a Medium article I found by Seema Singh called Why Does Correlation Not Imply Causation? Where she reports that when ice cream sales increase in New York City, murders also increase. What? Ban ice cream.
Well, and that's sort of the point that she's making, right? Yes. You can't just look at these 2 data sets and say, oh, increased ice cream sales means increased murders. Obviously, the ice cream sales are causing the murders,
we must cancel all ice cream and send it directly to Matt so that he can eat it all. I
mean, it's going to make me a murderer, though.
Oh, that's true, but you'll be very happy.
I've eaten a lot of ice cream, and I'm not a murderer that you know of.
Ooh.
In truth, there's a confounding factor in Singh's farcical study. Summer heat. Both ice cream sales and murders rise during the hot summer months. So it's a good reminder that we can't just be slaves to our data. We have to explore the entire picture. Data sets alone don't preclude the need to think critically.
Totally.
Yeah. So
they're tools.
They're tools, exactly. Exactly. They're tools. We need to make our own assumptions about them based around what we know, the surrounding information, rather than just looking at the data set and saying, oh, this gives me an answer. Right? So let's get back to the Sasquatch. While Foxon's numbers do indeed show that the Sasquatch sightings can be forecast in areas of higher bear populations, what else does that tell us? Well, bears tend to live in heavily forested areas, which is also reported territory for Sasquatch. Just like you don't see black bears hanging around the corner store in Lower Manhattan, you wouldn't expect to find Sasquatches there either, right?
You'd be a little shocked to see that.
I mean, maybe you do.
I don't know.
Buying Jack Link's jerky.
Ooh, there you go.
Now, I'm not knocking Foxon's research. In fact, I think he's onto something legitimate here. It stands to reason that a good deal of Sasquatch sightings are just straight up misidentified bears. And to see the comparison between bear populations, Sasquatch sightings, really does back up that theory, I think.
Yeah.
But a lot of the reporting I found on this article when I was doing my research falls into a familiar trap when it comes to cryptozoology, and that's another of my favorite logical fallacies. That's the either-or fallacy. EJ, do you know this fallacy?
I'm not even gonna try.
Okay. we'll do a logical fallacy quiz.
From my, yeah.
So it's also called a false dilemma. You're still like, no, I'm not even gonna try.
I'm just saying, please, continue.
Okay. It's like saying if you like cats, you can't like dogs, or you either have to stop driving cars or you destroy the planet. That sort of thing. There's only two options. It's very common in cryptozoology, in paranormal research, reporting. You would say something like, Sasquatch is either a giant hairy ape or it's a black bear. But here's the thing, right? Sasquatch may not just be mistaken for a bear. It's far more likely that Sasquatch reports taken as a whole are a large collection of things. Misidentified bear sightings are just one of them.
Yeah, totally. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because they could be misidentified moose sightings, misidentified elk sightings. They could be tree stumps. There's a very, very famous photo that I believe was in the 1970s of a Yeti in the Nepal region. Now, the photo was just looking off in the distance, and you saw this shape against the cliff. Kind of shape, the shadow falling behind it. And when people went back to the region, they found out that that photo was just a picture of a rock. But that's a misidentification, right?
Totally.
And Bigfoot, we have this whole other tapestry that's built from things like hoaxes, tall tales, and the cultural zeitgeist that we get from being inundated by things like Harry and the Henderson and the Bigfoot Jack Link sausage commercials and things like that. Yeti mugs, all of those things,
totally.
Right? Everything, all of those things that we've talked about combined make up our Sasquatch sightings. So to attribute all of those occurrences to one particular thing is severely limiting. So if it's there, is it a bear? Maybe. But maybe a better question is, if it's there, is it sometimes a bear?
Right. Makes perfect sense. And I think it's worth saying that Foxon's research is a really fascinating window into being able to quantify the bear population.
Yes.
And what a great tool that is, and what a great piece of the tapestry overall that is. And I think the more we can put those pieces together, the hard work that this researcher did and the work that everybody else does to put all this puzzle together really is going to help clarify everything for us, as much as it can be clarified.
Absolutely. Yeah. The other paper that Foxon did, if it's real, could it be an eel, was researching whether there was a sustained or a substantial eel population in Loch Ness that could have been responsible for the sightings. And Foxon actually found that the answer is no. There's not a substantial eel population that could be identified as Nessie.
Interesting.
And so that becomes an important factor, right? Where you say, okay, when we look at these sightings, we should be able to then look at these research studies and say, okay, is it an eel? Probably not, because we know that there's not a huge population of eels here. You look at a Bigfoot sighting somewhere, you look at the bear population. If there's a low bear population, you say, okay, maybe this wasn't a bear. Doesn't mean that it's a Sasquatch, but maybe it was something else. We have to eliminate the bear question because it's not hundreds of bears for this one Sasquatch sighting in this region.
Yeah, and it really helps us form those hypotheses when we have researchers like Foxen bringing things like that up. Okay, let's look at the greater population and form a good hypothesis on this.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, EJ, you did send me this one. This is a cool one.
Okay.
So, there's a small English town 50 miles southeast of Manchester, United Kingdom, that holds a unique reputation. It's being called a UFO hotspot, at least by the Manchester Evening News. In an article reported by James Holt, even NASA scientists are becoming interested in its place and its strange occurrences in the sky.
Cool. Yeah, I have a theory about this.
Okay.
I think that this town is absolutely bucolic and wonderful and special. And NASA scientists are just making up bullshit excuses to be able to spend a lovely time in a small English town.
So you think this is just a place where NASA scientists want to go on vacation, and so they're saying, oh, there's a lot of UFOs there.
Yes, this is a conspiracy theory I am starting right now. NASA wants to go on vacation in jolly old England, and they will do it however they can.
If we have any NASA listeners, please email us, slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com. Where do you go on vacation? From the outside, Bonsall, UK, located in the Derbyshire Dales district, is a typical quaint English town. Proclaimed the healthiest village in England by our friends at the Daily Mail, Bonsall is a quaint little town on the edge of the Peak District National Park. Its most prominent feature is the Market Cross, which is described on the Derbyshire's tourism website as a slender circular shaft topped by a ball.
No comment.
Yeah, we're not about that humor here.
No. Come on now. So they have like this like thing in their town that's like cool. That reminds me of Royston Vasey a bit.
It's very Royston Vasey, League of Gentlemen. Very much. If you look at it, it's all on hills.
Okay.
Kind of like Royston Vasey's kind of that way.
Yeah.
And it's these old buildings and stuff. The town itself was surrounded by lead mines. Okay.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. And then there were textile shops in the town limits in like the 18th and 19th centuries. A few of them are still standing today. They also have this awesome looking little tavern, the King's Head, which dates back to the 17th century.
Oh, I want to go.
Right?
I want to go apply to NASA just so I get a free trip there. NASA, will you take me?
So, also, they have the Barley Mow, a quaint little free house featuring live music and a very unusual sporting event. Every year, the Barley Mow holds the World Hen Racing Championship, and I swear this is a real thing. You can bring your own hen, or if you don't have a hen, you can rent one for £5.
Oh.
Participants lead their hens through a 30-foot course, and the fastest time gets a trophy and a bag of grain.
Can we please go? Can we please go there?
Do you want to race a hen?
Yes, I want to race a hen.
You could fly there and then just rent a hen.
I want to fly there and rent a fucking hen. How do you win, though? Do you elbow everybody out of the way and like...
No, the hen that runs the fastest wins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a racetrack.
I thought it was like the dog, the Best in Show, where you're walking around with your dog through the tunnels and through the hoops and stuff.
It is a course. It's a course like that, but you have to do it in a certain... Or not. You don't have to do it in a certain amount of time, but the fastest one to run that course wins.
Okay.
And they time each one.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just in case you're curious, the world's fastest hen, named Cooked It, ran the course in just 3 seconds. That was in 2017.
How do you do that? Well, I don't know how long the course is, but what?
The course is 30 feet.
That's fast.
I know, it's 10 feet a second.
Holy
right?
shit.
It's a fast hen.
It's a fast-ass hen.
Yeah. I wouldn't want that hen chasing me. Although I guess you don't... Hens wouldn't really chase you. I've never been chased by a hen. I've been chased by a rooster.
Yeah, hens aren't really all that aggressive in my knowledge of being chased by roosters. Yeah, we both grew up being chased by roosters, highly traumatized.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will never forget the feeling of beaks jabbing into my calves.
Terrifying.
Horrible.
I was so scared of it. We had a rooster with a floppy crest.
Yeah.
And he would charge after you, and then he would actually attempt to jump on your chest. It was really scary, and like poke you in the face. It was really terrifying.
That's horrifying.
Yeah. So
Chickens are scary, guys.
chickens are scary, man. So this is probably the last place you'd expect to be a UFO hotspot, right? Well, in the early 2000s, no less than 19 UFOs have been reported in the skies around the area. They're so commonplace that the Barley Moe's TripAdvisor features this review titled, "I saw a UFO fly over the pub."
Hell yeah.
This is the review. "This is now my favorite. The customers are friendly, the staff are good, and the landlord and landlady are great. We were outside on a Friday night and all caps, UFO went over the pub. I asked about it, and other customers said this had happened before several times over the years. We are definitely going back with a camera."
Yes.
If that's not a glowing TripAdvisor review, I don't know what is.
I know, that's pretty enthusiastic.
Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, I would go if someone was like, there are UFOs that fly over this pub. I'd be like,
Hell
yeah,
yeah.
all right, I'm going to go.
Yes, I'm going.
It does not say how much this person had to drink before they saw the UFO fly over the pub. The most famous of Bonsal's UFOs was filmed in 2000 by a woman named Sharon Rowlands. She was a resident at the town. As described in a BBC article, Rowlands heard what she described as an eerie noise outside. So she took her camera, this was a new video camera that she had just gotten, and she filmed a circular object that she estimated to be about 2 miles away. They don't give an explanation of how she knew that it was that far off, nor how high it was at the time. Rowlands described the object like this: a giant disc with a bite taken out of the bottom. As it hovered over the woods, it seemed to expand and then get smaller again. We could see it pulsating, as if starting up, and then it just went. It came really close at one stage, and I thought it was going to land in the field. You can hear me on the video say, wow. Apparently, Rowlands sold the footage to an unnamed Hollywood producer for £20,000. Right?
Whoa.
Right? This is like amateur footage from a cheap camcorder. £20,000.
That is, but you know, that's how you see stuff. I mean, you know, it's just happened. Yeah, just happen to have a camera, and you just happen to be pointing in the right direction.
Right.
That's nuts.
I can't find who that producer was or what happened to the footage. According to the UFO Casebook website, the original tape has been under lock and key for the last 2 decades.
Oh man.
So I don't know if it was ever actually featured in like a documentary or something like that. It sounds like the sort of thing that would be in a documentary.
Yeah.
Right? But I can't find it anywhere. Now, however, the video is on YouTube.
Ooh.
It shows a ball of light that hovers in midair, changes colors during the hovering process. It's shaky, it's pixelated, like what all the things that you'd expect from an early 2000s video camera. The best shot is at the end when it looks kind of like a jellyfish without tentacles, or maybe like a cell. It has kind of the outer cell wall and then the inner section, or maybe like a piece of sushi. Hovering in the air like that. If you think of that, right?
Delicious.
Has
I like
little
those
layers
aliens
inside. Yeah, delicious sushi aliens.
Yes.
This was recently reported in the news that this town was very popular, and it's very similar to what is honestly a developing news story right now, and that's the story of the Chinese balloon, right? In case you missed it, Chinese surveillance balloon just made a journey across the U.S., like indie film style, before being shot down in the ocean off the East Coast. So think like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles meets The Fast and the Furious.
Yeah.
Now, according to the New York Times, these balloons had been sighted in the U.S. by U.S. intelligence at least 3 times in the last 4 years. But those reports had literally flown under the radar and had been classified as UAPs, or unidentified aerial phenomena, which is the military's new updated term for UFOs. I'm not entirely sure why they changed it from UFO to UAP. I think it might just be a branding issue.
It might be to gain more credibility.
Yeah, I think UFO eventually became synonymous with flying saucer. Mm-hmm. Back in the early, when it was all developing in the 40s, 50s, 60s, you had, they were called flying saucers, and then the term UFO got coined, and eventually those two things melded together, where now colloquially UFO means alien spacecraft.
Yeah.
Right? Although the true military definition of UFO is still unidentified flying object. It could be a rock that was thrown in the sky, right?
Right.
UAP now fits that designation instead. That's their catch-all for shit that we can't identify. Could be weather phenomena, foreign aircraft, blurry pictures of birds, whoever, who knows, right? So why call these balloons UAPs instead of surveillance balloons? Well, several U.S. officials who chose to remain anonymous in the New York Times article explained, this is a quote, "When the determination was made, officials kept the information secret to avoid letting China know that their surveillance efforts were uncovered."
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
basically, we didn't want China to know that we knew they were spying on us.
Yeah, makes sense. So it's interesting. Now we all know, though.
Yes, we do.
So we seem to be uninterested in keeping that to ourselves anymore. This, if anything, this feels so much like a flap, like what you would call a UFO flap, except we know exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's interesting. This does feel... I had just researched for another episode that we're going to have in the future. I just researched I believe it was 1952. There were a whole bunch of flying saucers, quote-unquote flying saucers, UFOs, sighted around the White House in, I believe, July of that year.
Oh, wow.
And it's a really interesting event when you take it kind of contextually, talk about like the growing communist movement, the wars that were happening at that time. Mm-hmm. But it reminds me of that incident where all of a sudden there was just shit in the sky above the White House, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the U.S. government didn't want China to know that they had detected their balloons. So they just called them unidentified and filed it in the same folder as we file flying saucers and alien abductions, cow mutilations, all that good shit, right?
Yeah.
That's a common tactic in counterintelligence. You just sort of muddy those waters and you don't let them know that you are paying attention. You just throw it in the folder with everything else.
Yes.
The Pentagon released a statement saying, "We are confident the balloon was seeking to monitor sensitive military sites."
This is the more recent thing?
This is the Chinese surveillance balloon. Yeah. This is Pentagon. This is the Times article that came out on Friday.
Damn.
Yeah. So why would a similar balloon be anywhere near Bonsall, UK? Are they monitoring the hen races?
Yes. That's my conclusion.
And what about the other 18 sightings that happened? Reporting things from pink lights to balls of fire.
This is weird.
As it turns out, Bonsall's location might actually be the key. Less than 60 miles to the east lies the Royal Air Force Waddington Base in Lincolnshire. I believe it's Lincolnshire, not Lincolnshire, right?
We're going to get a lot of emails maybe from some UK listeners that will tell us how to pronounce it. This is how you pronounce it, you dumbass Americans.
I'll just say it with a drawl and call Lincolnshire.
There you go.
That's my Lincolnshire.
That's, wow, what a great way. That's perfect.
On the Royal Air Force website, the base is described one of the Royal Air Force's busiest stations as the hub of UK intelligence, surveillance, target acquisition, reconnaissance, and the main operating base for airborne intelligence and aircraft systems.
Okay, so intelligence.
Intelligence.
Interesting.
So that's basically a long-winded way of saying that they're throwing a bunch of shit in the sky. In fact, there was a recent book by Dave Gledhill and David Lewis called Operational Test, Owning the Edge. And it gives detailed accounts of flight and weapons testing at the Royal Air Force Waddington base. Now, I'm not saying that the object Shannon Rowlands saw was a balloon spying on the Waddington base. I honestly don't know what it was. But it seems likely to me that with so much military tech being tested on the base, there's going to be all manner of strange sights in the surrounding sky. No wonder this little town close by gets such a shock when it looks up from its racing hens.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That makes sense to me. You know, and the hens are a really good distraction, I'll say.
I mean, they must be. Yeah.
I bet NASA put them there.
The
Second
hens?
conspiracy. Yes, NASA put the hens there to distract people from what the truth of what is up in the sky.
But NASA still wants to go to Bonsall, right?
Yeah, they don't give a shit about those UFOs. They want to race hens.
So NASA wants to raise hens. That's what we've determined.
I think that's what it is. Because hens could be the future of intelligence gathering. You don't know.
I feel like the title of our episode is in there.
Yeah, man. They look so innocent and cute. You know, they're just running along. You don't know what they're up to. I mean, they could be up to some shady shit, those hens.
Those hens?
Yes.
What if the hens are counterintelligence?
Sure.
The hens are a psyop.
Yes.
Oh, God. Here we go.
And the fastest hen gets recruited to the NASA. It's like this. It's like the beginning of an adorable 80s movie. It's like this hen won. Okay, little hen. What's this hen's name? Like Cooked. It's Cooked or whatever.
Cooked It, I believe, was the hen that won.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Admiral Cooked It. 10 years later, Admiral Cooked It walks into the room. We have a situation on it.
We have a situation on our hands.
Squawk. All right, EJ. Mm-hmm. So this episode is actually going to air on, let's see, February 16th, which is just 2 days after Valentine's Day. So EJ, when you think of Valentine's Day, what do you think of?
I think of the day that you make me really good food.
Oh, God, that's probably not going to happen this year.
That's okay.
I am so snowed under with work right now. We're barely able to record this episode at all.
I know, it's okay. No, it's. I'll just think back fondly on the other years. No,
I sit and sulk and eat frozen pizza.
I'll just stare at you as I slowly eat whatever crap that I find. No, it's a day of a lot of pink colors.
You probably think of chocolate, maybe?
Sure, I think of chocolate. I think of paper flowers.
Yeah, right?
On pipe cleaners.
And then you probably think of bullet holes and bloodstained walls, right?
Definitely. That's the second thing I think of.
See, back in the 1920s, Valentine's Day took on a very sinister meaning. 1924, Chicago wasn't the happiest place. Gangland violence, prompted by the Prohibition, teetered on the brink of an all-out turf war. You had Dion O'Banion on the north side, affectionately called the Northsiders. And you had Johnny Torrio on the south side, called the Chicago Outfit.
Ooh, that's a cool name.
Chicago Outfit,
Chicago
right?
Outfit. Ooh, I like it.
Each leader vied for control over the Chicago bootleg business. Torrio, whose nickname was the Fox, because he was so cunning and intelligent, he did his best to avoid war. Now, when O'Banion, leader of the Northsiders, approached him and offered to sell him a brewery, Johnny the Fox agreed, thinking that it might help to stabilize their alliance. Or, I mean, they weren't allied at the time, but stabilize their rough relationship, right?
Right.
But O'Banion had other motives. He'd found out about an upcoming police raid at that very brewery, and he wanted out of it before it got shut down.
Oh my God. That's slimy. That's conniving.
So, sure enough, the Fox buys the brewery. The raid happens. Place gets shut down. Johnny the Fox realizes that he's been hoodwinked, and he retaliates and orders a hit on O'Banion. On November 10th, 1924, 3 men gunned down that Northsider leader in his flower shop. The Northsider home base was a flower shop on the north side of Chicago.
Oh, man. Okay. Very Valentine's Day-ish.
Right?
Yep, keeping with it. Yep.
Yeah, that's why I chose to feature this episode.
Ah, yes.
Jaime Weiss stepped in to control the Northsider outfit. Knowing that he couldn't let an assassination go unpunished, Weiss retaliated, and in January of 1925, the Fox's right-hand man was attacked. That right-hand man, you want to take a guess who that was?
Was it Capone?
Al Capone. Oh, yeah.
Oh, he was a right-hand man,
He was a right-hand man at the time, yep.
Okay, all right.
And he
well,
managed to escape this attack uninjured. So he was fine. Oh, hey, Yotzi, you want to join in? You want to participate? Come here, bud. So Capone's boss, however, wasn't so lucky. Less than 2 weeks later, the Northside gangsters ambushed Johnny Torrio and his wife, shooting them both and nearly killing Johnny. Okay?
Did they die?
No, they did not.
Okay.
No, he was very seriously injured, however.
Okay.
So Torrio turned control of his outfit over to Al Capone. 2 years later, Capone ordered a hit on Weiss, the leader of the Northsiders, and gunned him down in the street in front of the flower shop again. This left George Bugs Morin in charge of the Northsiders. For a few years, things went mostly quiet, but tensions were boiling behind the scenes. And by 1929, they reached a breaking point. After Bugs Morin ordered the killing of one of Capone's henchmen, the Chicago outfit had enough. Capone spread word that a special shipment of alcohol would be arriving at the SMC Cartage Company, a warehouse and garage on Clark Street near Lincoln Park. Capone himself was smart enough to be in Florida at the time, ensuring that he couldn't be linked to this incident.
Smart guy.
Smart guy, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So on the morning of February 14th, Bugs sent 6 of his men to pick up the shipment. Among them was John May, who brought his dog, his German Shepherd, Highball. Tagging along with those 6 men was an unfortunate friend, an optometrist, who, as far as I can tell, was just like hanging out with gangsters. So they arrive at the Cartage Company, and as they're waiting to get their shipment, a bunch of men burst onto the scene in police uniforms. Thing is, those men were Capone's men dressed as cops.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So they conduct this whole fake raid, and then under the pretense of like holding these men for arrest, the phony cops line the gangsters up against the wall of the garage. This is the north wall of the garage. They pull out Thompson machine guns, and the gangsters in disguise gun down the unarmed men and coat the garage wall with blood, pepper it with bullets.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I did not know it was that conniving.
Yeah,
Holy
right?
crap.
This was this whole plan that Capone put in place.
Wow.
Then, to complete this illusion, a police car arrives on the scene. But again, this is a fake police car. More fake cops get out and they arrest the guys inside. This ingenious act of deception prevented anyone from calling the actual police because everybody in the neighborhood assumed they'd already been summoned and the criminals were in custody. Meanwhile, they just ride off back to the south side. Right?
Oh my God, that's smart.
So the most crazy part about this is Bugs Morin himself was going to be there. He was late that morning, leaving his residence, and he missed the whole thing. He was approaching the garage when the fake cop car was pulled in, and seeing that, he and his right-hand man turned tail and they got the heck out of there.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Highball the dog, who had been tied to a car, survived the shooting.
Oh, good.
It was actually Highball's barking that alerted people to the massacre, and hours later it was discovered. Highball was found blood-soaked and terrified, hiding under a truck.
Oh. Poor Highball.
Poor Highball, right?
I want to hug Highball.
I know. There's a really, really sad picture of Highball under the truck.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yotzi,
Stop eating the cords.
Yotzi, we don't eat cords. So this was dubbed the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. And the shooting was the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, right? Gangland violence, which had been mostly tolerated for the past decade, came to the forefront of public consciousness. Within 2 years, Elliot Ness forms the Untouchables and began police counterstrikes against the bootleggers. In June of 1931, Al Capone famously pled guilty to charges of
tax fraud.
Tax evasion.
Tax evasion. Yeah.
Tax evasion. In April of 1939, Bugs Moran was convicted of fraud, and he spent the next 20 years in and out of prison, eventually dying of lung cancer in Leavenworth in 1957. Now, Capone, who had developed syphilis, was released from prison in 1939. That's because they couldn't take care of his medical condition with the syphilis. He tried to go to Johns Hopkins, but they refused to take care of him because he was a gangster.
Damn.
He became one of the first patients to try penicillin during the initial trial of it, but the damage to his brain had already been done. 5 years later, a doctor in Baltimore proclaimed Capone's brain had been so ravaged by the disease that he had the mental capacity of a 12-year-old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about him.
Yeah, syphilis like ravaged him.
Oh,
Yeah.
I had no idea that's what happened to him. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. A year later, he suffered cardiac arrest and died. But the question on everyone's mind, of course, is what happened to the garage?
Yeah.
According to a CBS News article written by Adam Harrington, the SMC Cartage Company continued to stand on the spot until 1967, when it was finally demolished. The area is now a side yard for a senior center. I actually walked by that area recently when we were in Chicago, and I didn't even know that I did. It wasn't until later that I looked it up, and I was like, oh, wow, I walked by there.
Is there even a plaque there? I can't remember. Wow,
there's not. It's interesting because it's sort of a thing that Chicago doesn't seem to talk about very much. They don't seem to memorialize it. I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? Like, it's not it's not like a great, victory for the forces of good or something like that. It's kind of a tragedy. So I guess I understand it.
Yeah.
Now, that said, they do conduct like ghost tours and things like that. Mm-hmm. Mysterious Chicago is one of these tours that conduct there. And on their website, they claim that Highball's terror during the incident left a psychic imprint on the place, which intensified when the building was demolished. This is commonly called the stone tape theory in ghost hunting. It's the belief that objects in the environment and like around you are capable of storing psychic energy like a battery. When a particularly emotional event occurs, like violent death, the bricks and stones can absorb this psychic emotion, and then they radiate it out for years, sometimes centuries later. The stone tape theory seems to originate with the concept of place memory, the idea that buildings or locations can hold impressions of previous events. This theory was developed by the Society for Psychical Research, which is a fascinating group of individuals formed in the late 19th century. They were a direct result of the growing spiritualist movement that we're actually currently talking about in our series on the Fox sisters.
Hell yeah.
So they were kind of looking to find explanations for like spiritual contacts and the spiritual activity that they were seeing at the time. And in a lot of ways, the SPR was the first real skeptical investigation team looking into these sorts of events. We'll talk more about them in a forthcoming Fox Sisters episode. But the stone tape theory, for the record, is really just unfounded pseudoscience. Geologist Sharon Hill, in her article Spooky Rocks on the Skeptical Inquirer, had this to say. The stone tape does not make sense in whatever context it is implemented. Not only do we still not have a reasonable mechanism to record, store, and retrieve traces, but there remain many vexing questions about the idea. Why is just one event recorded and not a jumble of events? Why does the recording last for decades or centuries instead of getting overwritten? Why do only certain places have place memories? It's disingenuous of the paranormal researchers to utilize stone tape theory as an explanation, or even to suggest it because it sounds sciencey.
It does. Anytime you put theory on the end of something, it's like, yes, let me get my monocle and put it on my... Yes.
There's also this concept. There are certain materials that record the stone tape theory better than others. Quartz is one of them.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And I love that because you're just kind of like making that shit up. You're like, oh, yeah, quartz really records really, really well. But then it's interesting because they say stone tape theory is one of the reasons why Gettysburg is so haunted, but there's no quartz in the bedrock of Gettysburg.
Yeah, but there's wood. And, wood is really good at recording gunshot sounds.
You're just making shit up now.
But doesn't that sound good, though? That sounds pretty good. And bricks, especially. Bricks, they're great at recording panic.
Well, that's what they say, right?
I don't know what anybody says, but that sounds about right.
Well, Mysterious Chicago claims that the latent psychic energy at the Massacre site is so strong that passing dogs will freak out and bark uncontrollably, probably feeding off Highball's terror, right? However, they also recount a story of a dog on a recent tour who, quote, casually walked through the fence, relieved itself, and walked right back to the owner. So, maybe less traumatic psychic energy and more I want to pee there energy. But maybe it wasn't the site that was haunted, right? Maybe it was the bricks, absorbing all that stone tape energy. After all, the back wall, the north wall of the garage, had been sprayed with bullets and blood, right? After the building was demolished, the bricks were sold at auction to a Canadian businessman named George Patty. I believe it's Patty, P-A-T-E-Y, Patty. Mm-hmm. He had them numbered so they could easily be reconstructed and had them shipped to Canada. They toured for a bit before being installed in the Banjo Palace in Vancouver, in the men's room, at the urinal.
Why?
Yeah. So this was a nightclub where you could go in and you could pee on the most famous gangland massacre in history.
But why?
Why wouldn't you?
I don't understand.
Why would you not want to pee on it?
But you're not letting other people see it.
Oh, no, apparently women could go in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Anybody can go in? Okay.
I'm a little confused because it was in front of the urinal. Now, they did have glass in front of the actual bricks, so you were peeing on the glass in front of the bricks.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly the circumstances where women could go in, but apparently women could go in and look at the bricks and I guess also look at the men peeing on the bricks. I'm a little... I don't know.
I don't know how that worked. That's a dynamic. I'm not sure, but...
It's unclear whether the women were allowed to pee on the bricks or not.
Oh. Okay, but it has to be equal opportunity.
You would think so,
right? Yeah. They should just let them do that.
Unfortunately, we can't answer these questions because the Banjo Palace closed in 1976.
Damn it.
And most of the bricks were subsequently auctioned off. Some of them went to private collectors, but 300 of the original 400 bricks can now be found at the Las Vegas Mob Museum. They're on display, which unfortunately means that you can't pee on them anymore.
Damn it. Well, I'm sure it's Vegas. Okay?
You might be able to.
I bet you can pee wherever you freaking want. Man.
What happens in Vegas, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I feel like the stone tape theory is, if it's true, and I don't think it is.
It's not.
Right. I think that it can get very dense and convoluted because, like, okay, yeah, sure, this brick saw the Valentine's Day Massacre.
Right.
But where did that brick get mined from? What did that mine see?
It's a good question. Yeah.
You know, like, you can go back and back and back until it's like...
Well, and that's what they were talking about before. Like, well, why doesn't the brick also hold the energy of all the people who were peeing on it?
Yeah.
You know, what if somebody broke up with his girlfriend right before he went to pee on the brick? Shouldn't that hold the energy as well?
Yeah.
Why is it this arbitrary, like, oh, the worst thing that ever happened, why doesn't it get overwritten, all of those things? Yeah.
When did the dog go pee in the parking lot area? Was that before the bricks were moved to the...
That was after.
Okay.
See, they said that there might be traces at the site, but the dog went and peed on the site. Mm-hmm. They said that the traces might be in the bricks, but they're probably not.
Yeah.
They also claimed that the bricks were cursed, bringing bad luck to anyone who owned them. But George Patty owned them for 30 years. As a successful businessman, Patty ran touring shows, hung around with mid-century celebrities like Marilyn Monroe, and generally lived a pretty awesome life.
Yeah.
The bricks, which were his possessions until 1999, just a few years before his death, they didn't seem to hinder his success at all. The Mob Museum in Las Vegas has been running for 14 years with a reconstructed brick wall. Seems to be doing just fine.
Yeah.
Survived the pandemic.
Yeah, well, it's a hell of a thing to survive, yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. The truth about the masonry is probably best summed up by Mario Gomez, who runs the website myalcaponemuseum.com, who had this to say about his 2 Massacre wall bricks. He has 2 of the bricks.
Okay.
They do not bring bad luck. They just sit there. I have 2 Massacre bricks and sometimes sleep in this room peacefully with no gangster ghosts or massacre victim spirits tugging at my feet.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, if it's going to happen to anybody, it happened to somebody who sleeps next to bricks.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The legacy of the Chicago Outfits gang warfare is still wrapped up in those bricks. But it's not the stone tape theory or the emotionally porous material that holds the account. It's the legends we tell about the larger-than-life figures like Capone, Bugs Moran, Johnny the Fox, and Dion O'Bannon. After all, the effects of bootleggers are still felt in Chicago and across all of America to this day. Stone tapes are not.
Hell yeah. Guys, it's an interesting thing because I had no idea about the intricacies of what caused the Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yeah.
No idea. I'm sure there's been movies about it, but man, that'd make a great movie with like a Scorsese film, you know, like these guys dressing up as cops and then, oh, but there's a twist. The cops that show up aren't cops. Oh man, that's like...
Isn't it cool? Right? Yeah.
Capone should have just been a Hollywood screenwriter.
It goes to show how smart he was. Mm-hmm. That he laid all of this out and was like, no, then we're going to have fake cop car come in. We're going to load all of these people into the cop car as if they're being arrested, knowing full well that the bodies were just going to sit there. And knowing, to this day,
yeah,
we don't actually know who were the shooters. We don't know. They have a lot of theories. They think they have them pinned down, but no one was ever arrested, convicted, anything like that. They don't know who committed that shooting, that massacre.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. I feel like Capone is a lot like he caused a lot of pain. He was a jerk. He was a gangster. You know,
Right.
I'm not like I'm not lifting him up in any way.
Oh, here we go.
But he's got a very like art of war way of looking at things. Like,
Explain that.
Well, Sun Tzu talked about deception and the power of deception in war. And as somebody who's like studied martial arts for many years at this point, it's kind of like that's a big part of it too. Is it's all about deception.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I think that is what makes like a good gangster a great gangster, or a good general a great general.
Yeah.
Like knowing when to play those people and knowing when to play people and how to
did.
play people.
Yeah, he absolutely
Damn.
did.
What a conniving guy.
So happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. That was so romantic. Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's great.
Cool. So like we said, we're planning on doing these like once a month.
Yep.
We'll pop a beer. Feel free to drink along with us, your beverage of choice. We are aiming to always have, you know, some type of cryptid, paranormal themed beer. Hopefully that there's enough out there.
Yeah.
I think there probably will be. If you have ideas for things like cocktails, you can always send them our way, slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com.
Absolutely. And you know, if you have participated in the hen run, the Bonsall hen run at any point, please write in. Please let us know how your hen did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What is your hen's time in the international hen race?
What is your
Let
hen's
us know.
name? What's
And your hen's name. Yeah, I'm curious if the hens... So, since that one was called... Oh, what was it called? I forget.
The one that won?
Yeah.
Cooked it?
Cooked It. Since that one was called Cooked It, I feel like they probably have racehorse names. Like Henry Leaving's Jacket or something like that, right? Like really ridiculous names.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. five-feather gonzo.
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. It makes no sense at all.
Yeah, exactly. You just throw a couple words together.
Something that rich people think up, like with some whiskey.
Totally.
By fire. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious if that's what it is as well. And the people who help the hens run, are they jockeys?
Ooh.
See, I have all these questions now.
What do you have to be? Who do you have to be to be a hen runner? To be somebody who helps the hens?
Are there steroids for the hens? Are hens on steroids outlawed?
They would never admit that if they would never admit
You would
that.
be able to. Yeah. See, we have these burning questions.
Yeah.
If you work at the Barley Mow, please, we would love to interview you. So yeah, we're gonna keep doing these. Next week we are going to continue our Fox Sister series with episode 2 in the series. It's gonna be really cool. It's gonna be super spooky.
I'm excited to get back into these ladies are very interesting.
Yeah.
They're fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about bad women's anatomy a little bit. Be a lot of fun. And we'll talk about the growing spiritualist movement as well.
Wow.
Fantastic. Yeah. And once again, let's give another plug for Ocean Monsters. Again, a collaboration between Abomination Brewing Company and Mast Brewing Company. If you see it, definitely check it out. It's an awesome hazy IPA. All right, everybody. Have a great week. We will see you soon. Thanks for listening to Slaying Monsters. If you like the podcast and what we do, please share it with others or leave us a rating and review. For questions, suggestions, and other feedback, reach out to us, slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com, and stay up to date by following us on Instagram @slayingmonsterspodcast. Your support helps us grow, and we are truly grateful to have our listeners and community.